係夠鐘亦都夠人。
Well, it's the time to start, and we have a formal quorum, so I call the meeting to order now. According to paragraph 6.3 of our menu for panel chairmen, members or the subcommittee can decide whether we should re-elect a new chairman. No? Okay. Do we need to elect a new deputy chairman? No? So we move on to the next item. The schedule of meeting for 2015-2016 it's been tabled for members' reference. Do you have any comments? On the 4th of October, we are going to have a meeting from 10:45 to 1:30 p.m. at the request of the government. Is there any special reason for that? Well, they have not been fulfilling their promises on the railways bylaws. A year ago, I understand a year ago that they have come up with a 70-page document on amendments to the bylaws, but suddenly everything stopped. So what was that meeting for? Well, we received a letter from members asking for discussion of the bylaws. So I will be talking about that later. I'll ask the clerk to say something about that particular meeting referred to by the member. Well, there are three subject matters for the meeting. The railway bylaws, Shatin Central Link, and also the WIL and SIL. And they are going to give us an update on the progress. Chairman? Yes, as the member who have written to you suggests we should discuss the bylaws. I hope we can get from the government, we should ask the government to tell us whether they are going to conduct a review. Well, I don't know what is meant by executive-led. They're sort of blaming us. They are sort of blaming us for not having any discussion on those bylaws. When they answer my question and Mr. Uchiwai's question, they talk about the lack of a consensus in the direction. It was rather odd. In the 70-page document, there are many issues involved. I don't think there's a lack of consensus on all the points in the document. Okay, we'll communicate with the government over this. Mr. Wong Kok Heng and then Mr. Michael Tin. Chairman. With regard to the agenda, I would like the chairman to take up with the government and the MTR's the questions of fares, and I mean the fare adjustment mechanism and the concessions. We should have an agenda item on that. For example, the installation of more fare savers stations and interchange concessions. We should have an agenda item on that. And as regards the review of bylaws, and also to review the rules on bulky luggage and so on. We should also cover that. If we want to talk about fares, well, actually it is under the ambit of the transport panel. So I will talk to the panel chairman as regards the right venue. The meeting on the 26th of February has to be rescheduled because of the it overlaps with another meeting. Are you talking about the 26th of February at 10:45? We're going to have a transport panel meeting, and that's why the 8:30 slot is proposed. But there are many concurrent members, so we'll be here for the whole morning. That's not very satisfactory. I'll see what can be done. Dr. KWOK Ka-ki, on the 2nd of October, I wrote to you on the MTRCL rules on bulky luggage, but the questions have not been properly responded to. MTRCL has recently announced some temporary arrangements, but it's not an ideal solution. If we have to review the whole set of bylaws, it will take a long time. But I think the members of the public and this council have certain expectations of a speedy resolution to the carrying of musical instruments by passengers. I would like the MTRCL to come to talk to us over the temporary arrangements and how effective they have been. Can we have a discussion next time at the next meeting, because it will be in December already? Well, we'll have to talk to the government over the arrangement of agenda items. After this meeting, the next one will be held in December. And in November, we're going to receive a progress report on the XRL. So maybe we should arrange a special meeting. So are we going to have a special meeting on XRL and the one I proposed? Well, I'll have to look into that. I need to work things out with the MTR and the government if we want to cover XRL and the bylaws. Well, I would like to have a public hearing on the rules regarding musical instruments. There are people, musicians, and the cultural sector people who would like to say something about those. I don't think we have sufficient time if the meeting is for 2 major items. Mr. Christopher Chung, I want to talk about accessibility of MTR stations. And now they are offering something for wheelchairs, and it would obstruct other users. And it takes as long as 10 minutes to make the trip down to the station. Why can't the MTR make available other facilities for the use of the disabled? And MTR is not concerned about what happens outside their stations. If you look at Quarry Bay Station, there are only 2 exits. If you go to the wrong exit, you have to go another kilometer before you can reach the other exit. And there are more and more passengers. Why can't they provide more exits? And they think it's not their business if there's a lot of people waiting outside the stations, or that a big crowd gathers outside, they don't care. But those are their passengers. Well, Mr. Chung, you did propose this in the past. Last year, we had a very tight timetable. So I will see when we can have a discussion. Well, if you look at the Quarry Bay Station, there are more and more commercial buildings there. And if you go to the wrong exit, you have to walk an extra kilometer to go to work. And if something happens, the station will be overcrowded. Mr. Gary Fang, I want to make 2 points. A member has raised the issue of accessibility or improvement works to the railway MTR stations, including greening and landscaping. MTRC has indicated that they won't do this unless they have a major project going on at the same time. In principle, of course, we should improve accessibility, and lifts and other facilities for the disabled should be improved. Chairman, so when you talk to the MTR, you should sort out the principles first. In the next 10 to 15 years, we're going to have a number of new railway projects. So we need to look at the planning and the design. So maybe in one of the 2 meetings to be held in June 2016, can we ask the government to tell us the findings and progress of their studies regarding those railway projects? I'm in particular concerned about the cost of East Kowloon extension and also the technical challenges that they face. So can we have a discussion either in April or June 2016, Chairman? Do we have other members who would like to speak in the first round? Ms. Claudia Mo, I shall be brief. I want to talk about the rail MTR bylaws. It's about luggage and musical instruments, and the MTRCL is working on it, and they're going to make an announcement. I'm concerned that some of the bylaws would give rise to unnecessary confrontation. For example, whether you're properly dressed, whether you are allowed to drink water. We'd like to have a discussion. Well, my concern is that the government would say that let's not talk about it now. Can we have a special meeting on these issues quickly? When I asked whether drinking water is allowed, well, the MTRC said no worry, there was no prosecution in the past 2 months. Well, but that's not the right answer. There might be no prosecution in the past 2 months, but there's no telling whether you are going to prosecute people in the future. So can we have a special meeting in December on MTR bylaws?
Well, we have to talk to the government and the MTRCL about our agenda items, because they have to send officers to attend our meetings. And as you want to have an in-depth discussion of these items, so we really need to make arrangements with the government and the MTRCL. Mr. Michael Tian? Chairman, I think we all have noticed this, that as there will be a lot of major issues to be discussed in the coming year. Now, every meeting, we will hear about progress updates on various lines. And we are holding a meeting every 2 months. So in the coming year, we'll just have 4 meetings. How can 4 meetings solve all these problems? So I have several suggestions. First of all, maybe all our meetings should last until 1:30, because after 12:45, there's nothing. So can we prolong our meetings until 1:30? And if there is a need, we will add meetings in between, because there are so many things to be discussed. This is point number 1. Point number 2, well, I think the government has to come to talk to us about the second cross harbor bridge. Now, lately, the development has also put this forward. But the Transport and Housing Bureau has been silent on this. What is the concept? We want to know about that. Now you're going to carry out a study. So when will we see it built? In 20 years or 40 years? And also for the light rail system, the government hasn't told us something very important. That is, does it want to keep the LRT system, or will it consider replacing the LRT system with a newer system? Now, it's been dragging its feet, and it has not been buying new cars. New towns are being developed, so this problem will become more and more serious, in particular in Northwest New Territories. So they have been telling us for a year that they were looking at the issue, so we really want an answer. And also, can the chairman write a letter to them? In March this year, I asked them to give us a report on the loading of all the lines. And now it's already October 2015. We still do not have the figures of 2014. This is unacceptable. So can you ask them to give us the figures as soon as possible, and maybe we will need another meeting for that issue. Mr. Chen, the government has just tabled a report on the loading of MTR trains. So we have already got a reply from the government. And if in the future we have time, we will discuss this. As for the other issues you raised, I have put them down and I will talk to the government. Well, Mr. Tan suggests that our meetings be extended to 1:30. Well, in the past, we actually have been having very long meetings because a lot of people would like to speak. I will talk to the clerk and see if such an extension is needed. If our meetings are extended to 1:30, will you object that? No? So I'll talk to the clerk, and then at the next meeting, I will tell you whether our meeting will be extended to 1:30. Well, Chairman, what is this piece of paper? It's not about rush hours. It's meaningless. We want to see peak hours loading. If you talk about the average loading per day, of course, is never saturated. I cannot accept this because we have been talking about peak hours. Yes, okay, we will ask them for that information. Members, any other questions? As for the next meeting, the government has already made a proposal. That is for our December meeting. We will be talking about Express Rail Link, the Sha Tin to Central Link, West Island Line, South Island Line, and Kwun Tong Line, and an extension. So do we want to talk about all this in December, or do you want to advance the meeting? Well, last time we also talked about construction costs. the government is looking at the report submitted by the MTRCL. MTRCL would like to claim some more funds from the government. So if we have enough time, we may also talk about that. Any other business? Later on, the chairman and vice chairman of the subcommittee on matters relating to railways will be talking to the director of bureau, and we will be talking about our future work. Your proposals will also be discussed with the director of bureau. Thank you.